And we're live. It is Thursday, September 22nd.
Fourth, Ben.
24th. I accidentally almost just banned a user from Crowdcast, and I don't even know who.
And you got the date wrong. So it's off to a great start.
It's off to a great start. It is Thursday, September 24th, 2020. 5:01 p.m. We're barely late, notwithstanding the best efforts of our guests to throw us off our game by showing up late and creating an echo for me.
I will.
Are you in the shower? It looks like you're in a steam room.
Everything has to be apparitional.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. Oh, good. I'm not echoing anymore.
No, good.
All right, so I am at the cabin in the woods. It is a rhinoceros shirt day, but Kate informs me that I am so low resolution that the rhinoceros shirt is not even identifiable as such. And I woke up this morning thinking what the world really needs right now is a little bit of both sidesism. Just a sense that, the scales are balanced between the evils of all sides of the equation. And what we really need to do is make sure we are approximately evenly distributing the pox between the houses. And so I was thrilled when I saw Scott Shapiro's tweet, who announced that he thought this was a cycle, the replacement of Ruth Bader Ginsburg forcing through the Senate in an election year. I think you really do need headphones, Scott.
Oh, I have headphones. I have headphones. Oh. Should I go get them?
Yeah, you should, because we're getting some reverb from your end.
I'm sorry, by the way. So this is an example of both sidisms, right? So I made a mistake, and it's really important that I own up to it. Okay, so this is a teaching moment.
Yeah, and
yes.
We are, but we're not gonna start a social media campaign to get Scott Shapiro banned from teaching philosophy at Yale. There's all kinds of restraint is going to be on display while he gets his headphone and I continue monologuing. Scott said this was a part of, this was just a cycle of retribution and tit for tat that goes all the way back to Roe v. Wade. And I thought that is exactly the kind of even-handed analysis that we need on In Lieu of Fun today. Earnest, serious bullshit with very little sense of self-awareness, and yet infinite self-awareness in its obliviousness. So before we go into, I asked Scott to prepare a presentation on the subject. Before we go into that, though, Kate has a really important question.
So, Scott, we're wondering, on a scale of 72 to 141, measured in tomatoes, how are you feeling you're going to vote right now in the election?
Well, I said so I'm sorry, is 72 tomatoes like Trump or is that Biden?
That's a great question.
Yeah. We're not, we're not helping you with that.
Okay, I would say I was around 90 tomatoes.
90 tomatoes? I don't even remember the second number I told you. But
yeah, 141. So a lot closer to 71.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, because it's
it could be anything.
Well, yeah, it's getting towards the end of tomato season. I'm sorry. I there are too many metaphors. Can we stick to norm violations because that's what I prepared.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Is that what you prepared?
Scott, I think as an academic, you should be prepared to answer questions at all times on all of your work.
right, and this is part of my work.
The last time you were on In Lieu of Fun, it was to discuss this issue.
No, that's true. I would just say that the first of all, there's a very multidimensional problem, and the issue of norm violation is very much connected to my choice. So I'm not gonna go with the side that is really just burning down all the norms. But before I do that, I have to kind of figure out which is that side. So you see,
I think that's right.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe we'll come back to the how you're feeling about the election question after we go through the norm violations, because it'll sort of lead up to the Scott Shapiro psychodrama thing. Before you go into that, though, I do want to congratulate you on having the single best tweet about the Abrahamic Accords.
What the hell? What? Ben.
So when Bahrain announced that it was formalizing diplomatic relations, normalizing relations with Israel, Scott tweeted that as a yeshiva bucher growing up as an Orthodox child, he always dreamed about the day when Israel would have formal diplomatic relations with Bahrain.
I can't believe that you can't even get through this. I'm like, have no idea why this is funny. Like a lot of things. And then but Ben can't even get through it without like cracking up.
Well, I would just say
the percentage of yeshiva buchers who've ever heard of Bahrain is pretty small.
Yeah, I mean, like the only thing is like we were like the only thing we talked about in yeshiva was the Holocaust and Yasser Arafat. Like the idea that.
What did you go to?
I went to Frisch, Yavne Academy in Patterson, then Frisch, where Jared Kushner went to school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you grew up pretty frum.
Well, I grew up in my parents weren't religious. I'm sorry?
I don't know. Like David Frum? What does Frum mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so means religious, like Orthodox religious. I'm sorry, right? And so my parents weren't religious, and I was sent to a very religious school in part because my parents didn't want to send me to the public schools in Patterson, which at the time, and probably now still, were not doing well. And it was either that or Patterson Catholic, and they sent me to yeshiva, and then I became religious. So that's like the thing is like when I feel completely entitled to make fun of religion on Twitter, in part because like I was a religious person for many years and I have a great respect for it, and so I feel like that enables me to be.
But not enough respect to still be religious.
No, right. No, I respect it, but enough to be a bigot about it.
Okay.
Enough to be one, or enough to be allowed to be one?
Let's just say play one on Twitter.
Yeah, because I think there is this like very special place that the Jewish community allows outrageous anti-religious bigotry from former Orthodox, right? The Shalom Auslanders of the world are not treated the way, say, the Ayan Hersey Alis of the world are treated, right? There's a sort of weird understanding that people like you are allowed to be pissed off and be either jokingly or not so jokingly anti-religious.
Yeah, I mean the interesting thing is that like so somebody like me is called the expression in Hebrew is a kofar we call it kofar be'ikr, somebody who rejects everything from the root, like he just ignores the whole thing, and the whole idea behind somebody like a koverbiker is that not anybody is allowed to be a koverbiker. Only if you're like really, really knowledgeable are you allowed to be a heretic. And so, like, not anyone can call themselves a heretic.
I
So
thought Kofer was like, I thought it was a yogurt drink. Kofer Bicker?
Here's a good trivia question for you. Let's see how good Scots ancient languages are.
Oh, God.
What is the etymology of that word?
Well, kufar, well, ikar is farmer, and is about the essence, about digging down. And kofar, can somebody? Is it Aramaic? I don't think it's Aramaic.
No, it's their Hebrew roots.
Yeah. So kofar, I would say it having to do with belief. Is it? Do you know the answer? Nothing is better than a priori etymologies. So, like, none of us have to actually know the answer. We just have to come up with a really good sounding story.
Give me. I want to think about it for a minute, but I believe it is. The Hebrew word for heretic from the Talmudic period is actually, apikoros is a importation of Epicureanism. It's actually a lifting of the Greek into Hebrew. So I think it's I don't know. I think it's related to that. I think it's like. It's a variant of apikoros.
Well, because there's Kofer. Yeah, I know, that's the thing. We don't have access to the internet right now.
Right, it's like because we are the internet right now.
Somebody just wrote. Fred just said a priori anything is hot garbage. Can you please throw this person off? A priori anything is
we
awesome.
Like Fred.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And there's nothing better than a good etymology. Don't you have like if somebody tells me a good etymology, a good half an hour, I'm happy. So
anyway,
cancel. Some people are saying mean things here.
That's right. You love it.
Yeah.
Because you said the last time you were on the show, you're responsible for all your academic work here. The last time you were on the show, you said that you love when people get mad at you on the internet.
No, I know, but
by the way, you and Glenn Greenwald are the only two people who like that. All right.
Okay.
Norm violations.
Okay. Norm violations. Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay. So can you let me share screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So
you can just do it.
Okay. Wait, oh shit.
I had to get a jacket.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see that?
No. I hope you're breaking a little fun again.
Oh, did we do this again? How are we supposed to share this, Kate?
Oh, you have to go. Do you remember? Go up to your thing. Go up
to the top of your screen,
and then
click the one that's a screen.
Drops down, and then there's a one that's next to the right of the HD. It says share screen, and then click on that, and then pick the application or the tab or like whatever it is that your presentation is in.
But don't break the show.
Oh,
yeah, so I share screen. Okay, share screen, select window or screen. So I select in lieu of fun, right? Or I share.
That's the opposite of in lieu of fun. You don't want to select.
Oh, that's how I broke it last time.
That's how you broke it last time.
Okay. Now can you see it? Can you see it now?
No, because Ben has made you the main person. But yes, I can see it, but we need to hold on. We need to make
Here we go.
There. Whoa! Oh, this is gonna be
That's good.
fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. So we're gonna play norm or no norm. Okay.
But not the norm from Cheers, right?
Right. No. This is any standard of no. There's gonna be any standard of conduct that exists. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, I have two columns here. One, that's the president on the left, and this is the former vice president on the right. And so I'm going to list the norm violations for Trump and then for Biden, and then I'm going to do it for the Democratic and Republican parties too. So I hope you have a bit of time. Do you have time?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just want to say something to all the people on the side. Like, if you can't handle the truth, you should really get off, because I'm going to be very direct. And
you're the only guest who's ever heckled our audience, Scott. Why leave that alone?
Well, because maybe I'm the only one that doesn't pander.
Hey, Scott, do you remember the time you called me and explained what norms were to me, and then explained that we were talking, and then at the end of the conversation, I finally realized we were talking about two different norms?
Yeah. I mean, norms are just it is one of those terrible words that mean everything and nothing. But in this case, it's going to mean existing standards of conduct that have some degree of normativity that we should follow. So let me get to it. And let me just say this first one is not going to be a surprise to lots of people. Okay, but he is not presidential. Now,
but he's the president. How's that possible?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's the president, but he's not actually acting according to the norms. See, the norms that we normally associate with somebody of that high office. So he's rude.
Orange.
His skin is a weird color. He's not. He's not.
Careful, Scott. Careful.
Skin's weird. Oh,
yeah. We're not gonna.
No, his skin is orange. Let's be very specific.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry. But actually, I don't want to focus on his looks. I wanted to say he's rude. He's not nice. He doesn't respect people, I think. So to me, he's not presidential, and that's a whole set of norms that he's violating. But since I think that that's somewhat uncontroversial, because even the Trumpers think he's not particularly presidential, I'm going to go on to the next one, which is that he's a racist. Now, I think that's a big deal for me. So I don't think that that's like a good norm to break. I think anti-racism.
But don't you think that actually the norm for society is to be racist?
Well, yes. Well, so this is part of the problem, which is that it's not just the president that's violating the norms; it's the community, his supporters, and the country that is not responding as strongly to this as they should, in part because I think they see Joe Biden and the other side violating their norms, which I will get to. So we can't condemn any of this yet until we see the other side. Okay? Is that okay?
Okay. Sorry. I'll stop my pushback. I'll be good.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to be fair. Okay.
Okay.
He won't commit to the election results. Again, this is very bad because it's a democracy. And what he said this morning, was it this morning or this early afternoon, or about or yesterday? Maybe, I don't know. He won't commit ahead of time to for peaceful transfer of power. And there have been a lot of vicious subtweeting of him by Republicans today, and that's been that's good. Ignores congressional oversight. Okay, that's also this is very bad. I mean, Congress is a branch of the government, and they should have the power to oversee the executive branch, and the president is acting like Congress has no power. Okay, he's a kleptocrat. Okay, and that's also a very bad thing. The norms of not having the state property and income and revenue being separate from your own, that is being commingled. But I just have to put it, it's been good for my Twitter feed.
Now, is that a norm violation, though?
No, actually, that's a norm confirmation. So I just want to be fair. That's a good thing.
But think about, but no, actually, I think it is a norm violation because normally your Twitter feed would suck. And so but because of the president, it's good for your Twitter feed.
No, I know, that's right. It's good for my Twitter feed. And that's the norm confirmation, not the norm violation. But I felt like you needed to put that in to be fair.
You just wanted to put in to be fair. Okay.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You should have put it in a different color, but I'm gonna let it go.
Scott, I have a very important question before you go on. You're out of space on this left-hand side of the column, and is that because these were the 6 norm things that you wanted to address about the president, and then you ran out of space and you sort of spaced them out to fill up the space? Or did you stop at 6 because you were out of space? No,
that's a great question. And this is triage. Because I could talk about the Hatch Act violations, which
you could talk about the fact that he's a lying sack of shit.
Yeah, right.
But the Hatch Act violations, wouldn't that be not a norm violation, but an actual law violation?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There wouldn't be. You're right. Maybe that's why.
You two are lawyers and I'm not, but the Hatch Act doesn't apply to the president. So it is actually a norm issue, but it doesn't fit on the page. And I think we've got to stop with you do run out of room with Trump and you're listing norm violations.
Right.
It's sort of a thing.
I have a really embarrassing confession. Every time someone says Hatch Act, I think of
Oren.
I think of a baby chicken.
A baby what?
Wow, that one's new.
You think of Oren? I literally always think of like an egg hatching. I forget that it's about Oren. Sorry. Okay.
All right. Meanwhile, back in Scott Shapiro's presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
So now everyone be prepared because I'm a truth bombing this. Okay.
Now wait, Scott. Before you go, you have to understand our audience leans left. So if you go equal on stuff, even Steven, people are going to be upset at you.
No, I there's no question. But you know what? Truth to power. Okay.
I have one if you don't have it, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, you can add, but he calls a lid by 9 a.m. Did you see this outrage? Do you see, there are 40 days until the election. It feels like the country is falling apart. And Joe Biden again calls it a day by 9 a.m.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Did he really do that? Was that today?
Yes, this is today. This is an outrage. He called...
sunsetting at 9 a.m. already?
Yeah, well, but the thing is, so he says he wants to prepare for the debate.
Isn't that 3 days away?
Yeah, I think was it 4 days away? Yeah. So, I mean, he calls a lid by 9 a.m. That's not good. That's really
yeah.
Okay. Are you upset, Kate? Are you really upset? I actually can't see you because I can't see your thing. I can't see.
Let's put up Kate's face and see how upset she is. Okay, Kate, let's look at... She's pretty upset.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but this is the story.
I thought that you were going to say that he hugged people too much, and that was his norm violation. He
no,
does that.
I would have put that down, but the I didn't have enough room.
Yeah, because you used that big font on the calls lid by 9 a.m. and
right. Well, I did it according.
It violated the norms that you established in the previous column, but using such. But okay. So wait. So how does this all come out in the tomatoes between 71 and 130?
I don't know, but can we get on to the next next people?
There's more.
This is the different axis here, the party axis, right?
Yeah, the party axis. So that's another part. So you have Mitch McConnell, they're using their fingers like that's very normative. I just wanted to point that out. So the first one is Merrick Garland. I find this very upsetting. I'm sure. I don't say I'm sure, but I think a lot of other people find the whole Merrick Garland, now Ruth Bader Ginsburg replacement thing very upsetting, very norm violating. So I think that's.
And do you find persuasive the defense that there is a principle at stake, which is that he had the power both times?
Well, but the thing is that's where the norms come in, right? The norms are there's certain ways of doing things, there's certain forms of reciprocity, and the fact that he has the power. Look, I have I think I have the power to not write letters of recommendation for students who are like. I guess. I mean, I actually don't know. I don't know if that would be a legal violation. It feels like. A violation of norms of teaching, that if I said to a student, look, I think that the Supreme Court is now been taken over by conservatism, I'm not going to write you a letter of recommendation for it. And I'm not sure if that's, I don't think that's a violation of civil rights law, but even if the dean said to me, I don't have the power to force you, but you really should. It wouldn't be an argument to say I have the power to not do it. It would be a wrong thing to do. So
Right,
I don't.
but Scott, I want to push you on this because this point seems, in 2016, Mitch McConnell said, we should hear from the people first. And we Senate Republicans are in the majority. And when the opposite party is in the majority, it always makes sure you hear from the people first before you appoint a Supreme Court justice. And so there was a principle stated. And now there's, the same situation, of course, except it's the same party. And he has the power again. So he says, fuck the people. I'm the same party as the president. And normally, people in my position behave like that. So he seems to be saying, to put it in the analogy to you, if you said, I will only write letters of recommendation for liberal students to liberal judges, not doing it for anybody else because, I can. Would you feel good about that? Would you feel like
No.
you'd struck a pose of principle?
No, I would think that I should be. First of all, it depends on what has been the history. I mean, what do teachers normally do?
Yeah,
Teachers
have law professors traditionally in an election year said to students, go fuck yourself. I'm not writing you a letter for a Democratic judge. I'm a Republican.
I feel like all the Yale law professors kind of have this tacit understanding that the people that they're teaching are one day going to be controlling their income taxes. And so I feel, or in some capacity. Or and so you don't want to get on anyone's bad side, right?
Well, I mean, I certainly don't want to get on anyone's bad side in general, but I don't think that kind of goes through my mind. I just think that you're a teacher, and your job is to convey information and then to accurately assess people's abilities for employers or for future admissions in schools and things like that. I just feel like it's a kind of a neutral thing that you're supposed to do. That's obviously there's political foundations to it, but it is a sense of not dividing the world according to partisan lines and to respect students for who they are. Now, obviously, it's very different in the case of SCOTUS justice, but for all, I mean, I was extremely surprised in 2016 when I heard this cockamamie idea about it's an election year. I had never heard that before, It seemed like didn't seem like it was made up, and then it was gerrymandered in the way that you're just describing. That it involved when Congress is on the opposite end of is held by the opposite party of the president, that you wait for election. That all just seemed kind of ridiculous and made up. And I think, you have to be.
You hold him accountable for that.
Yeah, I hold him. I hold them all accountable for it. I think it was just a terrible, terrible thing to have done.
I think I want to defend them. I think there was a principle there, and the principle is the dogs licking balls principle.
Of course, they well, that's the thing. Do we want to live in a society where people do what they can regardless of consequences? And I
Mitch clearly does.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the other norm you're going to unfairly accuse him of violating?
Well, they impeached Clinton and not Trump. I think that's I'm not sure how that could be justified. It's okay. It's not okay to lie in a deposition about oral sex, but it's okay to threaten a country with withdrawing military aid unless they help get political dirt on the opponent.
I thought they did impeach Trump.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. They convicted. They convicted Clinton, not Trump. I'm sorry.
They voted to convict.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm right. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. You're right. Thank you. They impeached.
You saw it here first,
the House
corrected Scott Shapiro on a law.
This is. I would say there's not that much honor in that. It happens all the time. But you're right, of course. The House impeached both Clinton and Trump, and Republicans voted to convict Clinton, but did not vote, except for Mitt Romney, who, by the way, I do not think that Mitt Romney violated any norms by throwing his hat in the ring.
By tying his dog to the top of his car.
That was a pretty bad norm violation. But it is, to me, I can't picture him doing that and not think of Clark Griswold, from National Lampoon's Vacation,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
compelling because that guy's normal.
Yeah, right. So here's the next one. Won't criticize Russian interference. This is, I know this is an issue dear to your heart, Ben, but this seems to me like, how do you let a foreign country interfere in elections and not say anything? I think that's a very bad thing. They accept moral criteria of legality. Oh, I'm sorry. This one is from the inclusive legal positivist norm violations. I'm sorry that this should not be there. I mixed up my PowerPoints.
No, but wait a minute. I want to know what you mean by it. Do you mean like they accept that anything that doesn't violate the law is therefore okay? Is that what you mean by that?
No. So there's this debate between legal positivists about whether the conditions for legal validity can include moral criteria or not. And so inclusive legal positivists believe that they can. And it's an incredibly esoteric and minute, though vociferous debate in jurisprudence. And I like. So
a really good thing to make an entire comedy sketch around.
Right, exactly. I just think it's really. I think it's so.
So this just slipped in from a different PowerPoint.
Exactly.
Very good.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's good. Again, it's good for my Twitter feed. I just have to put that in just out of fairness. Okay. Now here's the thing. There's a lot of norm violations on the Pelosi side. So first one is pointing out Republican norm violations. I did not know this. I did not know that it was there was a norm that you weren't allowed point out the other person's norm violations if they're Republicans, because apparently that's like a big thing. I noticed that like you're not allowed to do that. So that's one thing that she's been doing. Okay. Another thing is the ice cream freezer. Remember this?
No.
Oh my God! See, you guys are all libtards. You don't pay attention.
I just don't read the news.
Okay, well, that's why you're so. I mean, how can you be so uninformed?
I heard about the haircut thing.
No, the haircut I think is a red herring. The ice cream freezer. So right when the quarantine started, Nancy Pelosi showed us her freezer and showed us how much gourmet ice cream she had in it. Do you remember this?
Oh, I do actually remember that. I do remember that. But I was like in the middle of like fleeing New York City. So like
right, exactly. People forget how bad it was that she showed us the ice cream, all the gourmet ice cream in her freezer, and that's why. I mean, look, I knew this would upset you. The funny clap. Remember her funny clap?
Yeah, and she ripped up the
ice cream.
Yeah, and she ripped up the State of the Union address.
Was that this thing?
Yeah, it was this thing.
See, I knew that.
Yeah. Pam Carlin uttered Barron Trump's name in Congress.
That's true, she did, but it's not clear to me that she was referring to Barron Trump, right?
Well, she did. Oh, I mean, she did. She said.
How did those two words come out of your mouth by accident?
No, because she said.
You can't. That he can name him. He can name the son Barron, but he can't name him a baron.
He can't name him a baron, right? Yes, it wasn't a negative thing about Barron Trump.
Right. That's, exactly.
Yeah.
But
okay. But that's not really Nancy Pelosi's fault.
Well, the buck stops there. I mean, I'm sorry. It's done in her house. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to.
She tolerated it. She didn't.
Yeah, she tolerated it. There's no special pleading here, Ben. Okay. Yeah. The next one is Obama saluted a Marine while holding a latte. I'm sorry I added this in, but I'm just so upset about it. Do you remember this? Remember?
Yeah. This one I remember.
Did she salute Obama?
No, but it was such a bad thing that she's tarred with it too. I'm sorry.
And this is about the parties, not about the individuals.
I feel like two of the fine, the party's fine, but two of these.
No, but you haven't.
Fine.
To be fair, wait, I just want to raise something. You have not said anything about her being, a marionette controlled by AOC and Ilhan Omar and.
Who do you think is directing the ice cream freezer stuff?
Okay, just checking because these are not, if we had like Devin Nunes on to represent his grievances, I don't think he would be these are the things he'd be talking about, right?
Well,
he's talking about.
He's not an honest worker, but he's not an honest worker, Ben. I am, so that's why you're not having Devin Nunes do this. You're having me.
And Devin Nunes is, of course, welcome on In Lieu of Fun anytime he likes.
Did you know that he used to have a dairy farm?
Yeah, well, doesn't he still have one?
Yeah, but it moved to Iowa.
Right.
I don't know how you move a dairy farm, but okay. Is there one
more?
more?
I'm a little punchy today.
No, that's all I came up with.
That's all. So how do you balance? So, like, what's the balance here? Like, when you think about the individual level norm violations by the candidates and the party level norm violations, how does it weigh out for you?
I don't know. I'm not going to cry, but this is really hard for me. I mean, like, look at this. It's so hard. This is what philosophers call incommensurability. It's very hard. I don't know how to compare kind of double standards about impeachment and conviction with funny claps, or the Merrick Garland stealing a Supreme Court seat with having gourmet ice cream in your freezer. It's just a really hard thing. I will just say.
Is it okay if I tweet this chart?
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. I mean,
But I don't. I think that the answer is a 3/5 compromise.
Oh, so you do.
You,
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
We
but I
should.
don't know. I don't know of what. I just think that 3/5 is the right
of
number.
tomatoes.
Yeah, I will say. I will say that when it all comes down to it, I find the Republican Party and the president trying to destroy democracy. I don't know how to express why I find it more upsetting than what's happening on the Democratic side, but just like my gut tells me, I mean, look, I spent many years studying political philosophy, and so it just seems to me that one is more serious than the other. But it's going to take me a while to work.
I have a hypothesis about why.
Why what? Why it's so hard to say?
No. Why you leaned toward the left side being a more serious problem than the right side of the equation.
I, any help would be so.
Okay,
Um,
look at this. And this is just, extemporaneous explanation, so I could be wrong. But look, the Merrick Garland, Ruth Bader Ginsburg stuff is an ongoing pattern of activity, right? Continuing up to the present day. The Trump, failing to impeach Trump has allowed his bad acts up to the present day. Russian interference is ongoing right now. The accepts moral criteria of legality is in there by mistake, and they're still good for your Twitter feed right now. But
yeah.
all right, so pointing out Republican norm violations, that's also an ongoing activity. But the ice cream freezer thing is just something that happened and it's over. And so is the funny clap and ripping up the State of the Union address. And, Ken Carlin only uttered Barron's name once. And the Obama saluting a Marine with a latte was a while ago. So I think you're more disturbed by the stuff on the left side of the ledger because it's kind of going on now, whereas the other stuff, maybe you can dismiss as kind of isolated incidents.
Have you ever thought of going into political philosophy? Because that was so
Do not
good.
encourage him, Scott. Do not encourage him.
All right.
I thought that was really penetrating.
Let's take some questions.
Okay. I was asked to do this at 2 p.m, so I'm really raw.
It's really, I thought it was far better than I have some questions about the norm violations of your capitalizing regime.
I thought a lot about that actually.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel. Go for it. I'm not going to make any jokes today about your background shirt or chair.
I guess I'll throw out both my questions. What irritates you about media coverage in terms of politics today? And if Trump and Biden were an alcoholic beverage, what would they be?
Oh my God! I'm sorry. Who is he?
That's Daniel. He's wonderful.
Daniel is mysterious. He's a mysterious presence.
David.
He normally dresses entirely in black and sits in this giant black chair that he camouflages with almost completely, so he looks like a disembodied head. But today, more recently, he's been sitting in a different chair with a normal background.
It looks like he's come out of the basement and is in somewhere with the light.
Yeah. I have to say, those were great questions. I mean, I think the thing about the media coverage is, precisely what I'm doing right now, the both sides thing. I mean, the show in some sense was motivated by the tweet, which was motivated by that Josh Jordan tweet about the putting the lid on at 9 o'clock at 9 in the morning, as if that this was like a like an incredibly terrible thing to do. Whereas Trump was saying he didn't believe in the peaceful transfer of power. So that's the kind of the both sidism is irritating. And if they were drink, I think Trump would be rum and coke, because rum and coke is disgusting. And I think that Biden would be a gin and tonic but you forgot to put in the gin.
Don't you think Biden is really an old-fashioned?
Where you forget to put in the bourbon? Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean,
like
he might
Trump
be an
is
old.
a flaming shot of Everclear, and
Is Everclear like grain alcohol?
Like an orange crush chaser or something.
I see. Yeah.
And then anyway.
All right, Michael Fromberger, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm not sure how to follow up on that. So I've been sort of enjoying your, you probably don't think of it this way, but your sort of subtle take on these things. But it always occurs to me when I see someone kind of, taking, well, hear me out. When I hear someone sort of taking a somewhat subtle approach to things by comparison to the sort of norms, if you like, of social discourse, it seems to me like for society to function, we need to have these kind of philosophical discussions, right? We need to discuss the boundaries between rules and norms and outcomes and all these other things. And sometimes poking fun up in this way is sort of a good way of highlighting that. But it seems like anytime one does this in public discourse in particular, it either gets ignored or branded as elitism or snobbery, or it becomes like it's really hard to actually have these conversations about these ideas, even in a humorous way. And so I guess really what I'm wondering is, do you sort of feel like there's any way to get past that as a society? Or do you think it will sort of take a revolution of, everybody has to become better educated, or like what, I don't really know what exactly that might look like, but do you feel that we are kind of beyond hope, and we have to continue sniping from the sidelines? Or do you think that we can get to a point where we could actually, in fact, have these conversations as part of our news cycle and our, political discourse and with our politicians and that?
Well, so first of all, that's a fantastic question, and it's really to the point, and I really appreciate the question, despite the fact that you malign me by calling me subtle, because I think my humor is anything but subtle. I'm really aiming
sharp
for
ball-peen hammer.
Right. I'm really aiming for a 10-ton anvil. So you raise an incredibly important question. So what happens when a norm is being flouted and it doesn't succeed? So the hope. So there's this concept of the anti-canon that people have developed, and there's things like Korematsu, for example. So Korematsu, even though Korematsu upheld the constitutionality of the internment, it has been seen as like one of the great mistakes. And you point to Korematsu as a reason not to do something, even though it came out the other way. And so, the reason is because A, we won the war, and B, we found out that it was total and utter bullshit. The fear of Japanese fifth columns in the United States, and so one enormous hope would be that this has a way that if Trump were to lose, would have a way of reinforcing the norms rather than contributing to their erosion. I don't think there's been a time in I would say, so it's funny because going back to the previous question, I hated the media so much more than I hate it now when I was in the 90s and the 2000s. I think that the media was unbelievably dishonest. I remember watching the Anita Hill confirmation hearings. And I remember Cokie Roberts always getting on ABC News and saying how the Senate is the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world. I mean, there were crazy things that were said all the time on the news that was pretending that the government was functioning. And we don't pretend that now, and we actually debate what's proper. I mean, I think lawfare has been, so unbelievably important in getting this message out. The importance of norms and governance, especially your writing, Ben. I mean, you've written extremely eloquently and powerfully about these issues that I don't think there's been a time that we've talked about it more seriously than we do now. That's my and my hope is that if he loses, it has a way he becomes the anti-canon. I hope I'm not betting on it, but that's my hope.
So I want to get through our last two questions before we wrap. Esther, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. First-time questioner. I'll make it brief.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I teach my two children that when they ask why are there all these rules, they're there because people have broken norms in the past and they need to make rules. So we now have a president broken so many norms, and in large part, it seems to me legally. So in the first 100 days, what's the highest priority in terms of policy and legislative changes that we need to consider to prevent these norm violations in the future?
Wow.
Our audience are no dummies. Just
I mean, no joke.
Next time you heckle them.
No, I heckled them into asking good questions. So I just want to be clear about that. No, I mean, these are great. So Bruce Ackerman, my colleague, has this expression that we have to have a never again agenda, that we can never allow somebody like Trump to have free reign. And there's a way, I mean, the problem is that Congress has abdicated responsibility because it's been in its interest to abdicate responsibility to the imperial presence, to the imperial presidency. I think that probably the most important thing to do at the beginning is to ensure that the ethics rules apply to the president and the vice president as well. So the idea was for so many years that we didn't have to do that because, of course, the president would respect the laws that apply to people below him, but that doesn't, or her, and that doesn't apply. So Trump has shown that that's not the case anymore. So I think broadening ethics to cover the president and vice president, I think, is important. I mean, the things that I'm most worried about are things like war powers and things like that, which I don't see Congress having the stomach for. The last 4 years should be taken as a tabletop exercise. Unfortunately, it wasn't a tabletop exercise for what can go wrong. And that we should be spending the next 4, 8, 12 years trying to make sure that this does not happen again. So the next Scott Shapiro doesn't have to come on the next in lieu of fun and lay out. So I think both ethics rules and kleptocracy should be against the law, and also showing gourmet ice cream in your freezer should also be against the law.
Yeah, that should be really strongly.
Yeah, I'm very.
We just need to embed that norm in statute. It was just unthinkable that anyone would violate it before.
Justice Kennedy,
or the Constitution.
Justice Kennedy would vote for that.
Mike Godwin, the floor is yours.
Hi. So the telegraphic version of my question is listed. It's Lon Fuller, H.L.A. Hart, Ronald Dworkin, pick two. But I can unpack that if you want me to.
I like the telegraphic version. It's incomprehensible to 95% of people.
I know. Well, that's why I did it. I just thought
including me. 3 degrees, and I don't understand what you're talking about.
Here's what. That's why I asked it that way, so that you would ask me what I was talking about. What I'm really talking about isn't the issue of norms somewhat related to the issue of natural law? I mean, what we think of as wrong in any circumstance, no matter what the law says. That is actually the question I want to raise, because in my jurisprudence course when I was in law school, I found myself, to my horror, being more of a natural lawyer than I had intended to be. And so I just wanted to raise that issue. If that's related to norms, or to what extent do the norms issues really raise natural law versus positivist kinds of issues?
You should have taken jurisprudence with Scott, and then you wouldn't believe in anything.
You would believe in one thing, which was that inclusive legal positivism must die. But that's a great question. So let me.
Wait, before you answer it, we have 2 important poll questions up, and I want everybody in the crowdcast to answer them. And I have some important final thoughts on the second question after Scott finishes his answer to this.
Okay, so I would just say that we don't care about norms per se. Violating a norm, like there are norms about racism, in certain communities, white supremacy, and we want people to violate the norms. So the norms that I picked were norms that have independent justification. Or even if they're not independent justification, they're justified by virtue of the fact that they are being practiced. But that doesn't mean that every practice norm is justified. Kate I just saw Kate's, she threw up in her mouth just now. She's like, 3 more minutes till I can have that low.
I was thinking about how very different still my interpretation of norms at an instinctive level is than yours, and I am probably wrong. I think okay, I have a question. Walking up on the right side of the stairway as you go up on the right, or whatever, right? Okay, and descending on the right. Is that a norm or a custom or something else?
Well, it's a custom that is generated a norm.
Right. And the reason it's a norm is because I would throw things at people in DC.
Yes,
if they were walking, right? And so you would have a reaction to it. I guess.
This is the internal point of view. The internal point of view. So you have a critical reflective attitude that you use in order to guide your conduct and evaluate other people's conduct. So if somebody were coming down the left side, you'd be you'd look at them weird, or you'd be like, dude, or something like that.
Okay, so pivotal final question. Is it normative to stand or to walk on an escalator?
Stand on the right, walk on the left.
I think that's the right answer.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Why then? Why? Why do people not do that? And I want, and why can't I throw them down the stairs if it's not a law and whatever? Because of natural law. Wrong to hurt people.
Because that would be wrong.
I will say that that people who stand 2 abreast on an elevator.
No, that's a provocation that warrants violence.
Yeah, I thank you. Thank you.
I mean, that's. I'm not a violent person, but yesh gvul.
There are limits. So you speak Hebrew?
No, but I can garbage it.
Okay.
All right, so I want to reflect for a second on how smart our audience is, because I just posted a poll that asks, to what extent is Scott Shapiro's parody anything like a real undecided voter? And the plurality responds a little bit, which is exactly the right answer. Because Because in fact, Scott's parody is nothing like a real undecided voter, except in one critical sense. So Scott's bullshit undecided voter is deliberative, which of course is a fantasy. He makes charts to weigh the evidence, right? This is a fantasy. But there is this one thing that I think Scott's parody gets dead on, which is an appreciation of the magnitude of the badness on one side and a wild inflation of it on the other.
Yeah, but just like the
Right, it's like, oh yeah, Trump's a bad guy and he's a rapist and he's a lying sack of shit and blah blah blah. But her emails, right? Or but Nancy, and I think you've kind of nailed that quality of the sort of wild overinflation of one side of the equation, even as you're stating it reasonably accurately. I mean, she did, after all, have emails.
I just have. Thank you. My only objection is that you made it seem a bit subtle, and I just.
It's just like soft. It's like just soft around the edges, kind of like your Vaseline smeared camera.
So Scott, I assume you are not going to decide on whom you're voting for. You're not going to be voting early, right?
I mean, if I make my decision, so it could be. This has been very helpful to me, by the way, and the questions that the audience asked have been very helpful. So it could very well be that tonight I just all of a sudden decide I'm going to vote.
Obviously, if that happens, call us and we'll have you on to explain the vote. But if we get as far as election day and you haven't made up your mind, like maybe you'll come
for the day after election day to find out how
the sort of after action report. Were you too paralyzed to vote? Did you finally make up your mind?
I'm committed to doing
with your
it.
ballot.
Oh, actually, I could have two ballots.
No. You that's a felony.
To have two ballots.
I don't mean that. I mean, as the PowerPoint. But I will say, I really plan on making a decision and voting, and I'm happy to come on and tell you my decision. Please don't yell at me if it's Trump. I mean, there are
clearly good reasons.
There are clearly good reasons on one side. So please
maybe you
don't.
like the color orange.
Yeah, look, I'm terracotta.
I know.
Yeah.
Terracotta is not orange.
But I will say that the questions were excellent and the comments were really funny on the side. I really you have a bunch of funny people who watch your show because you guys are funny. So
all right, man, thanks for joining us. You're a great American, even if you end up voting the wrong way. We have no idea.
No wrong way. There's no wrong way.
Yeah, there is.
No, the only wrong way is not to vote.
Oh, okay. Orange Man bad. We'll be back tomorrow. We have maybe it'll be with Ann Applebaum. Probably it won't.
She blocked me. She blocked me. Yeah, there are only two people on Twitter who have ever blocked me. One was Max Boot, and I deserved it. And Ann Applebaum, and I did not deserve it. And I just said
Others have blocked you, Scott. You just might not have noticed.
Oh, okay.
No, but only two people that are within the notice of a Yale law professor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I mean, I'm sure there are other people, but Ann Applebaum. So I have great respect for her. So I'm not here to say it. Just I'm hurt.
Maybe you can get Scott out of the Ann Applebaum Twitter jail. Ben?
Well, if Ann shows up, we will ask her why she blocked Scott Shapiro.
Don't.
Okay.
I think I know why. I think I know why she blocked me, but I didn't think it was a justifiable block.
All right, we're going to leave it mysterious.
Yeah.
We will be back 22 hours and 55 minutes from now. And until then, we don't have fun anymore, but we do have the ability to deliberate over our decisions, our votes, and our choices, and we have the ability to observe norms, uh, and to judge people evenly for departing from them.
And terracotta rhino T-shirt.
Yeah,
And we do have terracotta and rhino shirt. Thank you very much. We will see you tomorrow.